want to thank all of you for coming this afternoon, and we had a program at 1 o'clock. I think you will find it is fabulous. You will so enjoy this. But we wanted to do a couple of acknowledgments. I would like to actually thank Debbie Sluzak for helping, or for making this all possible. Raina was coming to and Debbie made it possible for her to come for us adults to have an opportunity to enjoy Buddy. So we really want to thank Debbie for her work and her wonderful. And we're going to, I'd like to introduce Raina Krasner. She is Buddy's trainer at the Virginia Wildlife Center. And she's got a fabulous program about how they're working with Buddy and training. Also, we do have some refreshments on the tables over on that side of the store. There's some drinks and some snacks if you need something to eat. And there's a nice, wonderful sculpture of a bear cub. And Raina's going to tell you a little bit about the bear cub too. So we appreciate you coming today. After the event, there will be some time for some pictures with Buddy. Just not too close. And we do have some souvenirs if you'd like to take anything home. We've got some water bottles and t-shirts and things, and we are donating a portion of the proceeds today to the Wildlife Center. So if you'd like to shop afterwards, feel free to come and shop. So I'm going to turn it over to Raina, but thank you so much, everybody, for coming. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone, for coming today. I'm sorry, I'm starting to lose my voice. So I'm going to talk as loud as I can, and if at any point it's not loud enough, just let me know and I'll yell louder. So welcome everyone for coming. I'm so glad that you're here. I want to thank Donna and Chuck for letting us take over your store. Thank you so much, very generous of you. And of course, Debbie, thank you for coordinating all of this. It's really much appreciated. And I want to point out, since we have everyone who was the key players in getting this, we have a new crate for Buddy. So everyone go and awe. And many of you are wearing the Buddy t-shirts, and those t-shirts made this carrier possible. So I want to thank you all for buying them. And I want to thank, of course, Debbie, Bobby, and Jim Deal, who are the three main people, I believe, that really helped to organize all of this. And then, of course, Marianne helping to sell and push everything on the chat. So thank you all very much for helping to coordinate that, because I love Buddy's new carrier, and it's growing on him. It's really pretty. And thank you all, of course, for buying the t-shirts, and you're all responsible for it. So thank you so much. Okay, so to get a feel of my audience, I'd like to know who knows nothing about the Wildlife Center. I had a few people in the first one that knew nothing, so I felt like I could, get away with more. Who knows a little bit about the center? Like, who would classify yourself as like, oh, I know some? Okay, so most of you are like, okay, and who's Critter Nation? Yeah. All right, wonderful. For those of you who don't really know, I know all of you know, but I'm going to give you my spiel anyway. The Wildlife Center is a really special place here in Virginia. We're a hospital and an emergency room for native wild animals. We were founded in the 1970s, and there was nothing like us at that time. We started in a horse barn in Wayers Cave, Virginia. We took in a few patients the first year, and since then we've grown to an average of 2,600 patients every year. So it's a pretty big number of patients. We're really excited about it. Not that the animals are getting injured, but they're coming to us and we're able to help them. So we do help native wild animals, and there's two really important words there. Native. That's okay. Native. So we only help native animals that are native to Virginia. We don't help animals from other countries. We don't transport animals in from other states. Only native Virginia animals here. And only wild animals. So we're not treating exotic animals. We're not treating people's pets. Only native wildlife. And we treat a wide range of patients. We treat animals that are really small, like white-footed mice and hummingbirds, and animals that are very large, like black bears and bald eagles. Speaking of black bears, right now the Wildlife Center is treating a number of cubs, a lot of cubs. We have 14 cubs right now, 14 black bear cubs. and that's a lot. So last year, just to give you a frame of reference, last year, 2012, the whole year we admitted 17 black bears. So far this year, we've admitted, we have 14 right now. We just released a yearling. We still have a yearling. So we're approaching our, have we hit? We might have even hit our, we're already surpassing our, and last year was a record. 17 bear was more than we had admitted in ever before. So this year is going to be another record year. And we need your help. We are building a new facility for these cubs and for future cubs. A mammal facility, and then we are accepting donations towards a larger cub rearing facility that will be basically this large, over an acre area that's going to be enclosed, and it'll be a natural area for cubs to grow up like cubs. So if anyone's familiar with our current situation for treating bears, we do have this sort of cinder block enclosure, and it works very well for injured, yearlings, and it works for adult bear that are injured. It's a nice, sturdy, solid enclosure, but we can always do better, and it's not a good setup for cubs long term. So now we're getting to the point where we're seeing lots of cubs, and we need a good setup for them. So we are doing a campaign to raise the funds. We need $140,000, and we have hit just over 31,000 so far. So any small contribution helps. If you're interested in donating towards that specific cause, there are some little envelopes over on the other side near the refreshments. You don't have to do it now. If you take it home and you decide that you want to contribute a little bit, that's wonderful. I'm not trying to push you. I'm just saying that if that's something you're interested in helping us with, that is a specific need that we have right now. You have a question?
Ed Clark's birthday is Tuesday. You can
That's
always
true.
donate.
Our president, Ed Clark, his birthday is coming up, so that's always a good excuse to give.
62.
So $62. And if you aren't, has everyone been to our website and watched the Critter Cam?
Yes.
Okay, most of you. So for those of you, again, who don't know, we do have cameras on some of our patient enclosures, and we do have cameras on the bear cubs. So we have two groups of bear cubs. We have one group of 8 and one group of 6. And we have cameras on them on both groups, and people are able to watch them. And since all of you have watched them, or most of you have watched them, you know that it can be a time suck. You can watch them for hours on end. And I'm very thankful that I don't get in trouble for it. And I'm actually encouraged to watch them because it's kind of hard to stop once you start. Because even them sleeping is adorable. So so feel free to contribute. And there's a beautiful statue over there, a carving, a bear cub carving, that will be auctioned at the gala. What is the gala date?
November 16th.
November 16th, thank you. Okay, so I've talked enough about bear cubs. So the Wildlife Center, we are a hospital. We do have vets on staff. We have 3 veterinarians on staff. We have 2 permanent wildlife rehabilitators. It's important to know that in Virginia we do need to have permits in order to take care of injured or orphaned wildlife in Virginia. And we have 2 of those on staff, 2 permanent rehabbers. And one of them just happens to be a vet as well. So she has a nice solid background in animal care. So because we have veterinarians on staff, that makes us a little bit different from a lot of other wildlife rehabilitation centers. So if you're a rehabber in Virginia, you do need to work with a vet. You need to have a vet that you can contact and you can get medication from, and that can give you consultations on care. But most rehabbers don't have a vet in-house, and we do. And I want to reiterate this point. We're an emergency room. So we're open 7 days a week. Now we do have business hours. We're open from 9 to 5, but we're there 7 days a week, and we have a vet on call. So if something tragic happens, don't call her if you find a baby bunny in your backyard at 2 in the morning. Don't do that. She'll be mad at me. But if you hit a bear in the middle of the night, you can call the police first of all, but also you can contact the Wildlife Center, and we're able to treat animals even in the middle of the night. It happens. And if you find an animal that's, on a Saturday or Sunday, don't think that you need to wait until Monday to contact us. I know that most of you are from this side of the state? Okay, so you're probably not gonna be driving over to Waynesboro, but you can contact us on the weekend, we're there. So don't wait until Monday, that's our busiest day because most people don't know that we're open on Saturdays and Sundays, so they wait the weekend. And those couple of days for any animal can be critical. So if you find an animal on Friday and think, oh darn, the Wildlife Center isn't open until Monday, I don't know what to do, call us, we're there, somebody will answer, somebody will help you. And even if you're not willing or able to transport an animal to Waynesboro, sometimes it doesn't even make sense. Sometimes there's a wildlife rehabilitator in your area. And we have connections with rehabbers all across the state. So if you find an injured or orphaned animal, you can always contact the Wildlife Center. You can leave a message with us if we're not open. You can email us. You can visit our website, wildlifecenter.org, to get more information. We're always willing to help you. We want what's best for the animal. So that's just a reminder, especially since it's baby season. Don't keep animals over the weekend. We'll help you find somebody to take care of. Okay, so that's my spiel. So today, we're going to be talking about Buddy. So the Wildlife Center, we do have a number of education animals, non-releasable animals that we keep at the center. We have several birds birds of prey like hawks, owls, a falcon, a vulture, and of course our eagle. And those are all of our birds of prey, and most of them are used on public programs just like this. They travel all over the state of Virginia. And Buddy is just entering his training process, so that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to talk to you about what the training process has been like with him, what my experience has been. I'm going to have a short little presentation, and of course Buddy will be out with me, helping. He's not very helpful, but he looks very nice. If anything, I could probably do it better without him, but. So what do I do now? I guess I can go now. Well, before I do that, so for who's familiar with Buddy's story? Okay, most people. So there were a few hands that were not, so I will tell his story. So Buddy was born at the Norfolk Botanical Gardens in 2008. His parents built a nest. It was on camera. And people were able to watch him from all over the world. And people watching him on camera were able to watch him as he hatched, as his parents took care of him. And they noticed that there was a growth on his beak, on the left side of his beak. And he was brought to the Wildlife Center for treatment. Turns out he had something called avian pox. So avian pox is a virus that's transmitted through mosquitoes. And the mosquito had bit Buddy, and it caused this lesion on his beak. And he was brought to the Wildlife Center for treatment. We gave him supportive care. There's not a cure for it, but we gave him supportive care. He made it through, and but the growth, we had to surgically remove the growth, but it had caused permanent damage to the way his beak grows. So it caused damage to the growth plate in his cere. So the cere is the top part of their beak where their nares are, or their nostrils, and there's a growth plate there, just like we have in our fingernails. And it damaged the left side of his growth plate, so the left side grows in more slowly than the right, so his beak always hooks to the left. And because of that, he's a non-releasable bird, so he's otherwise healthy, he's flighted, he's not sickly, he just has a crooked beak, and in the wild, he would have a really hard time eating on his own. And in captivity, we trim his beak, it's called coping. We sand it down with a Dremel sander, a little spinny, tiny little sander, and we sand down his beak every 5 or 6 weeks. And that enables him to eat on his own without the assistance of humans. So he is, in the wild, he wouldn't be able to do that, and he likely wouldn't have made it through the avian pox, the initial lesion, but he definitely wouldn't be able to eat on his own now. So he's a captive bird. He will never be released back into the wild, but he does have an important job now, which is teaching people about eagles, especially eagles in Virginia. So I'm going to bring him out. So he does have a leash on. I'm tying the leash into my glove right now, so that if he tries to fly away, I can't get him. All the way up. All the way. All the way. So he's going to get really excited about his perch. He loves his perch.
Oh my God.
Isn't that like? It's over really fast. I have a short little PowerPoint presentation. I'm just using it to guide my talk basically. So as you look at Buddy, you'll notice he looks at his feet. So I chose this, you can't really see it, I know in the sun, but I chose this picture of him where he's on his perch looking at his feet because that's Buddy to me. He looks at his feet, which is what he does. So that picture sort of embodies him to me. So this is talk about training Buddy. So before we start, I want to talk about a few falconry terms. So falconry is the sport of hunting with raptors. Now obviously we're not hunting with Buddy, but the same tools and principles that they use to train falconry birds we're using to glove train our bird and all of our birds at the Wildlife Center. So a couple of the terms: anklets are the leather straps around his ankles. Attached to them are jesses, which are basically the leather straps that are hanging down. The swivel is a little metal device that can turn, and it's attached to the jesses and attached to the leash. It's basically a connector. So if he gets all tangled up, like when he does something, if he's spinning around or something, or walking on his perch and he gets tangled up, I can just move the swivel and it turns and I can untangle him. The leash. This is his leash. It's nothing fancy, it's a leash. And baiting. Baiting is a really important word to know because he does a lot of it, although he doesn't usually do it off his perch. But baiting is whenever they fly from the glove or the perch at inappropriate times, basically, like when you're not asking them to do it. It's usually when they want to get somewhere else, or if they don't want to do what you're asking them to do, they'll fly away from you. But it's whenever you're holding on to them. So it's not like if you're in the enclosure and he flies away, that's just flying. Baiting is whenever you're holding on to him and he, because it usually results in him sort of hanging upside down or. Okay. So this is a close-up picture of his anklets and jesses. So you see his anklet here, and you can also see his nice big talon. So this is his anklet here. It has little slits in it, so it's nice and bendy. This is a big grommet. So we slide the jesses through this grommet hole. And these are the jesses, and we hold it in place with a zip tie, so we can't pull it out the other side. It's pretty simple, but I just wanted you to see what it actually looks like up close. So our training timeline. So Buddy has had previous trainers. Most recently, it was a woman named Darcy who was in my position. She ended up leaving the Wildlife Center, and so Buddy was without a trainer for a long time. She was working with a falconer. So similar principles, but it was a lot slower. They were doing things a lot slower. So basically it was like day 1, walk into Buddy's enclosure, walk out. Day 2, walk into Buddy's enclosure, touch Buddy, walk out. Day 3, walk in, touch Buddy twice. You know, like it was really slow. I might be exaggerating a little bit, but you get the idea. Dr. Dave McCrewer and I, as the Director of Veterinary Services, we started training him at the end of February. And we don't really have a definite timeline for how long until he's, fully trained. But I don't know that he'll ever be fully trained. My impression is that we'll just work with him for an indefinite period of time. We'll just work with him and develop his behaviors until he can always be better. So we're nowhere near what I would consider a completely trained bird, but I don't know that we'll ever be finished with training. I imagine that he'll need some training and enrichment throughout his life. Eagles are notoriously stubborn, and talking. And talking with people that have trained eagles, because this is my first eagle experience, and talking with other people who have actually trained, multiple eagles, trained them for falconry, trained them for flight shows. They say that there's no bald eagles. There's no way to say like, oh, they'll definitely be at this point, or they should definitely be at this point by this time. They should definitely be doing this by this date. Because every eagle is a little bit different, and it can take a really long time for things to stick with them. So we don't have a set timeline in case people are wondering, like, what, so you're going to be fully done by December? No. Okay, so this is a list of the goals we sort of decided that we wanted to meet when we first started training him. So I want to note first, we're not Dollywood. Dollywood is the place in Tennessee where they do flight shows with their eagles. Challenger is pretty famous.
Yeah.
We don't do that. We're not planning to do that. This is what we're asking him to do. This is it. This is the extent of his job. So I think he has it pretty easy. So you might be wondering, what's taking you so long? But this is really it. So we're not training him for anything crazy, just to sit on the glove and accept handlers, and nothing fancy. So first we need to build trust with him. So the primary handlers were myself and Dr. Dave. And we began working with him, and we wanted to build a relationship. I had never met Buddy before working with him. I mean, I'd walk past his enclosure and I'd sort of talk to him, but I never met him. And that might be anthropomorphizing a little bit, but there's definitely a relationship now. So the first thing we started with was training him to fly to the glove in his enclosure. We wanted him to just step up when he was asked from his perch in his enclosure, from anywhere. We want him to sit calmly on the glove while he's being handled. So if we're doing a program and he's just sitting here calmly on the glove, that's ideal. No baiting, so no flying from the glove, no trying to get away. It's not really a trying to get away, it's just flying. I don't really know how else to describe it. Except large crowds of people, which we are. Be comfortable in new situations, noises, surroundings, stimuli, items, whatever. Accept a new handler, not be uncomfortable with unfamiliar objects or sounds, and accept touch on his keel, which is his chest, his feet, his legs, and his toes, because we need to check all of those for health reasons, and it's a lot easier if he just lets his handler do it than have to restrain him, you know, to touch him and feel his keel for his body condition. Would you like a mouse? Oh. Would you like a mouse?
Yum, yum, yum.
He has a very full crop right now. Entering and exiting the crate without difficulty. So we had a nice exit here. We did not have such a great entrance either time today. But we're working on it. And perch. He needs to perch whenever and wherever we ask him to. If he's being weighed, or if the handler needs a break and needs to perch him somewhere, he needs to be able to do that. He's pushing food down to his crop. Okay, so then I sort of highlighted where we're at with each goal. So green means, okay, yeah, we're doing great. Red means no. And yellow means eh. So building trust with his primary handlers, we are good with that. We definitely have a good relationship. It took a little bit longer for Buddy to build a relationship, a trusting relationship, I think, with Dr. Dave, because Dr. Dave was a little bit more, he asked him to do more than I did, so he was sort of like bad cop and I was good cop. So it was really easy, which was wonderful for me. I loved it. So it was a lot easier for me to build a trusting relationship with him, because Dr. Dave would do something and I'd say, oh, I won't ask you to do that, just come here. And then flying to the glove on command, we're not doing that now. We'll get to that. Stepping up on the glove when he's asked, and in his new temporary enclosure, he's fine with that. Sitting calmly on the glove, that's still something we're working on. No baiting, we're nowhere near done with that. Accepting large crowds of people, we're doing good. Being comfortable with new things, doing very well. Entering and exiting the crate, he used to be fine with it, but this new crate, it's a new thing, something new, so we're working on it. He enters the crate differently than he did with his last crate. So the last crate, I backed him in, and this crate, it's sort of like a sideways thing, and I think it freaks him out a little bit. But it's not because it's bad, it's just he's not used to it, so we have to learn together how to do it. I don't really know how to do it. I haven't figured out our rhythm yet of getting him in, so we're working on it. And perching when and where necessary for being weighed and all that stuff. We're good with that. Okay, so how are we training him? We're using falconry principles, as I mentioned before, to speed things up, to speed up the training process. We started with manning. So manning is a falconry term for getting the bird used to lots of different stimuli. And basically you just handle the bird. For falconers, they have the bird with them like all day. So for me, it was like hard as a day to start with. A few times a day I would get him out for a couple hours and we'd work together. Now that we've sort of established a rhythm, it's less time every day. It's like an hour or two every day. And we train him with positive reinforcement, so I don't punish him for things. If he's a bad eagle, I don't yell at him, and I don't smack him on the beak. I just say no, And I encourage all of his positive behaviors, and I try to avoid things that could be negative. So, so that's what we do. We use some positive reinforcers like a whistle, just like you would train your dog with a whistle. So if you can't give a reward right away, like when he was flying to his perch, I couldn't run over and give him a reward as he got there, so I would give him a whistle. And he knew that the whistle meant food was coming. So we do give food, as you saw, food rewards for when he's good. Sometimes I use touch to let him know, like if he seems to be panicking or uncomfortable or something, or like he's unsure of a situation, I might touch him to like ground him, remind him, here we are. And voice commands, so he does know perch, and he knows no. Or I think he does. Sometimes he does. So building trust, this was a screen cap from the camera in his enclosure. So this was our first day together. That's Dr. Dave working with Buddy. I'm sort of lurking in the corner there, safely. And this is my first time handling him in the enclosure, so that's pretty cool. That was just our first day of trust together. Flying to the glove. So this is a really cool picture, I think. This is Dr. Dave snapped this of him flying to my glove mid-flight. I just think it's a really cool picture. So he was clearly very excited about flying to the glove. It was really awesome. So we would ask him, we would keep a food reward on our glove, would raise our glove and ask him to fly to it. He totally did that. But sometimes he got a little overexcited and he would get a little bit aggressive with me. And he stopped doing it at a certain point. So that's what he looks like once he flies to the glove. But you see that his wings are out. This is a nice settled. This is a nice settled posture for him. His wings are tucked. When his wings are up like that, he's ready to fly away, essentially. So he never really settled on the glove in the enclosure. He just sort of got the food and waited and then flew away. And this is him with me, so he would settle a little bit more with me. See that ugly orange thing is the whistle that we would use. So it wasn't always pretty. This is funny. If he would get frustrated, if he didn't know what you were asking him to do, or if he was impatient and he thought you should be giving him food faster, he would get a little bit aggressive. He's an eagle. I mean, you have to remember that he's a wild animal, so I know we often like to think of these animals as cuddly and cute, but he's a wild animal and he wants food. So he would sometimes, this is me sort of, I was probably being a little dramatic there, my face is like very cringy, but he was flying at me in a sort of aggressive manner, which would happen. We realized that we weren't getting the results that we wanted in that situation. He was flying to the glove for the food, but he wasn't sticking around like he should have been. He was taking what he wanted and leaving. And no matter how much we worked on it, he had decided over the years that this is what he wanted to do, and that was it. Because, 5 years of not having trained, he's grown up with people, and we're food. We give him food, and that's it. So he was used to getting what he wanted from us and then being able to move on. So when this was Buddy's first day out of his enclosure. This is Dr. Dave. So again, Dr. Dave did all the mean things to him. So he was the one that held the jesses in place for the first time, and Buddy didn't like that. He decided that he didn't like being restrained, which is kind of necessary if you're going to come out of your enclosure. We did not make it on the plastic. I'm sorry. It's like half on, half off. I'm sorry. So he decided he didn't really like that, so that meant that he was just not coming to us when we asked, which is not good. You don't want to ask him to do something and have him repeatedly refuse. So we decided we'd try something new, and we decided to take on a technique that, quite frankly, most other eagle trainers use, or many falconers use with their eagles. We moved him to, so we were stepping, I don't have any pictures of it because he wasn't doing it. So we moved him to a temporary training enclosure. It was the enclosure of one of our former education eagles, our Golden Eagle Jr. And we tethered him in this enclosure, and a lot of people think that tethering is not fair, but he's already not free. Like, he's not flying the sky. It's not like we took away a ton of freedom from him. He's still able to fly from one perch to, so his weather perch where he has access to sun and rain and wind, his covered perch where he's protected from all of that, and his water dish where he can bathe and drink. And he seems perfectly happy. I'm with him every day, and I see him he's developed this new routine that after every training session, he flies from, I put him back on that perch right there, and as soon as I leave, he flies to his tub and takes a bath, and I don't know if I should be insulted. But as you can see, so this little red dot in the middle here, he's tethered. So he has access all over. He can't get beyond this perch here, so he can't get tangled. He can't get stuck anywhere. We very strategically thought everything out. So that's his setup currently, and it's not going to be a forever thing, but that's how he is right now.
After all this time, you still keep him tethered there?
Yes, yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, we don't have any plans to untether him in the immediate future. He may eventually move back to his, he will eventually move back to his big, nice enclosure, yeah. But I'm not sure what the situation is going to be like with that, because tethering works really well. Quite frankly, our relationship he's so much better, and we have only positive interactions now. It's never a fight. He doesn't try and fly away from me now, so it's. I think that we're both super happy with the situation. I mean, because he's not missing out on anything. I know that everyone thinks like, oh, he could be flying, but he's not missing out on anything. He flies as much as he wants. He has perches. It's not like he's wanting for anything, certainly. So this is our first day together working in his temporary enclosure. I want to point out that winter jacket. It's very thick, and I wore it way past the time that it was appropriate weather-wise, because it was very thick and it protected my body from talons and beaks. So I wore it for a really long time, and I had these boots that were winter boots, tall, sturdy work boots. And I also wore those way longer, and everyone started like talking about it like at work. Someone came up to me and they were like, Raina, it's really warm out today. Are you sure you want to wear those? I was like, do you want buddy talons in your legs? No, you don't. So you wear boots because he will kick you. Well, he used to. He doesn't anymore.
Wait till we get back.
Right. I'll show you. So one of our goals was for him to sit calmly on the glove while he's being handled, and this was our first winter storm together. So this is Dr. Dave handling Buddy out in the snow, which may not seem very exciting, but I think that snow is a pretty big deal for an eagle because everything's white, everything looks the same. It's sort of hard to tell landmarks. It's harder to judge his distance when he's sitting on the glove and outside. So it was a new experience for him. It was new for us, and it's also just a really pretty picture. I think they look really cute together. So another goal was accepting large crowds of people, and I think he's done phenomenally well with that. He's done. I remember early on, I had a group of preschoolers that came to the center for a program, and Dr. Dave happened to be working with Buddy. And preschoolers, I mean, they're loud, they run around, they're tiny, and he did really well. Like, they all approached him, and he didn't do anything. It was so wonderful, and I remember thinking at that moment, oh, this is really exciting. We made some true progress here. But I think that I was wrong because I think he just doesn't care about large groups of people. I think he's a little bit of a ham. So I don't think it was really progress at all. I think he was just existing. But this is us at River Fest. So there he is perched. That's how he is at programs. He's perched. Partially because he's heavy. He's 7 pounds, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're holding it on your arm, it gets a little tiring. And also because he really likes his perch. And I learned this by accident because I had a routine of perching him behind the building on this perch, just as our normal walk. And as we were walking past it, one day I noticed that he was like trying to fly to it. So I tried, and I stepped him up there, and he was so happy, and I started walking away to see what he would do, see how comfortable he was. I just figured out that he really likes it. So I started using it whenever I was working with him. It just has worked out really well, and my arm is very happy as well. Again, this is us at the Jack Hanna event, which was totally different than Riverfest. So this was in a reception area. So it was closed quarters, and people were coming up to take pictures of him, and he did really well. I mean, he tried to bite a couple of people, but he did really well. They got too close. It was their fault. But it was totally different than Riverfest, which was outside, and there were like 300 people, and this place was like, it was I think 150 people, maybe a little bit more than that. But it was like more one at a time instead of like him seeing a whole span of people. So it was 2 very different events in the same month, and it was cool to see him at both events and be very successful at both events. So another goal was to be comfortable with new situations, noises, surroundings, stimuli. We've totally got that covered. This bird is like, you can do anything. One of my favorite things that I've done with him is, it's kind of like a game for me to see how much he'll take. So I have this beach ball. For those of you on Critter on the chat, GN gave me this beach ball, and it was deflated. But one day I was sitting at my desk, because we sit at my desk together, and I had this beach ball, and I was sort of bored because I couldn't really type. I had mouse guts on my hands, so I was just sitting there. And so I picked up the beach ball, and I was like, what will you do if I blow up the beach ball in front of you? And I started to blow it up, and he was super curious. He was a little afraid. His hackles went up on top, his feathers up top. He turned his head a little bit, but I kept doing it to see. He didn't fly away. He didn't react at all. He eventually just sort of settled down, and I had blown up a beach ball in front of him. And I was bouncing it a little bit, and nothing. So I think that's really cool, because he's never seen a beach ball before in his life. So that's really cool. So that's one thing. This is another happy accident. So that's Dr. Dave. With Buddy, my boss, Amanda, has these streamers that hang down in her office. And one day I was in there with him and I was talking and I realized that I had walked him into the streamer. I was like, oh my God, he's gonna panic. He wasn't doing anything. I'd been there for like a minute and he didn't react at all. So that was something that we started to do, is like walk him into things like the streamers, because he has to be used to things accidentally touching his head or his back or his tail. If a little kid comes up to him and like, not that anyone should do this, but kids do, they'll try and touch him. He needs to be used to those kinds of things. And we learned that he's pretty good with it. Don't try it. This is him at rounds. So he's over here with Dr. Dave. So rounds we do them every day with the vet staff and the rehab staff to get updates on patients. And it's a group of people, a good group of people, and we're all talking. And it's in the hospital, which is a little scary for him to begin with because that's where he's coped. And he did really well at rounds. He does fine. So that was a new situation for him. And he introduced Amanda, my boss, to him as a new handler. And he did really well. He acted like nothing was different. He was like, well, what's different between this brunette and that brunette? I don't know. They both have food, so. So that was great. That was wonderful. And this is we were doing Buddy's birthday photo shoot out in the woods. And he had put his wing out. He was sunning himself. And Dave was like, what happens if you touch his wing? Because he has like some funny feathers. And I was like, oh, I'm just touching them. And I was pulling it out. And I realized I looked like I had a fan in front of my face. I just thought it was a really cool picture. But as you can see, he doesn't care. Like, he doesn't react to those kinds of things, which I think is really cool that he lets you touch. Lets me touch. He'll try and bite you, but that's fun. This is him sitting at my desk with me. So. Again, just little funny photos from the Raina files of Buddy. Some of these pictures are on the website. This one isn't on the website. This is just from my phone. So entering and exiting the crate without difficulty. We're still working on that. He was fine in his former crate, but we're just getting used to the new setup. The opening and closing sideways, so he used to enter sideways. We're just working on that now. We're doing okay. That was only the third time that he's come out of the crate for me, so.
How long has he had the new crate?
Like 2 days. we got it on Friday. I tested it out once, it was fine. I was like, yay. And then I did it today and I was like, oh God. I should have practiced more. So another weird thing that we do is, so again, he's 7 pounds, and it's kind of inconvenient when you're working with a bird for many hours a day. You lose an arm, like you one hand. So sometimes you need 2 hands for things. So we'll perch him in weird places because, sometimes you have to perch him somewhere that's, inconvenient or strange. So here's a picture of him perched on Amanda's chair. This is just for fun, just to see if he would let us do it. And this is him perched on Randy's chair. And he perches anywhere, basically. This is him in the creek. This picture is on our website. It's the training updates. But again, we walk through the woods with him. We take hikes. I take hikes because I like hiking. So I walk through the woods with him around the center. And there's a little creek that runs through the woods. And Dave just one day walked down and put him in just to see what he would do, just to perch him somewhere new. And he was fine. He actually just sort of sat there. I thought he might try and interact with the water in some way, but he didn't. He just sat there. What you don't see here is there's a bridge that crosses over the creek, and it's one of his favorite places to walk, because every time we get there, I notice he gets really excited because I usually perch him on the bridge. It's like my first resting point with him, and I perch him there, and he just sort of sits there and we hang out for a minute and then we move on. But I realized as I was doing that he got really excited as we got closer. So what?
He's looking for fish in the river.
There's not too many fish in that. Maybe a crawfish.
An eagle can hope.
It's true. Oh, and this is our first news thing together, which he was fine with, which was interesting. There was a camera right in his face, and he was fine. Again, if he's on his perch, it's like, whatever. So this is him being weighed. This is another place we need him to perch. Again, doesn't seem like a big deal, and it's not a huge deal. Most birds don't have a big problem with being weighed. But it's still a little weird because he's perching on something and then he has to sit there for a minute and then step back up when we ask him to. So it's definitely a milestone for birds. He just happens to be really good about perching. So what's next in his training? So we've got this far. We definitely have a long way to go. So I may make it sound like he's this amazing bird, but he still has a lot of work to do. So he still baits a lot when we're walking around. So if you think about it, that's pretty inconvenient. So baiting, again, is the flying off of the glove. And he has a big wingspan. I don't know what it is because Dr. Dave was supposed to measure it and he didn't. Sorry, I don't know. But so it's pretty inconvenient that he baits a lot, and it's sitting still. It's usually not a problem. It's when we're moving. Something about the movement makes him antsy, and he baits a lot, and it's just not good. It doesn't look good. It doesn't feel good, and he looks so much prettier when he's sitting up. So we're working on that, and I went back to some of the basics with him. So again, we have a pretty good rapport working in the new temporary enclosure. We're doing really well, but I decided that I wanted to reinforce some of those good behaviors, like him stepping up and waiting patiently on a perch for me. So I'm working on that, making sure that we're totally fine with that, making sure it's solid. There's definitely a lot of things that we still need to work on, but I want to make sure that we have at least some solid things. Like every time I go in the enclosure, he's perfectly fine with me approaching him and him stepping up, which 99% of the time he is. I just want to make sure it's 100% of the time. And exiting the enclosure. So again, eagles with Buddy, it's sort of like one day he will remember everything that we've learned so far, and he's perfect, and he looks at me like, why are you making me do this? We've done this a million times, and I'm fine. And then the next day he'll be like, oh my God, I've forgotten everything you ever taught me. What's happening? So the exiting of the enclosure seems to be one of those things where we used to be, it was one thing that when we first started working with him, we were like, oh my God, he's so fine with this. It's not a big deal at all. Now he's decided it's a huge deal, and he doesn't like it, so now he baits as we exit the enclosure. So we're trying to get rid of that. Now, if you think about it, walking through a door is a little bit weird for them, but he's fine walking through doors, just not his enclosure door. So I don't pretend to understand him fully. And we work on walking around. So again, I take walks through the woods. Now it's a little bit hot out, so I don't do that as much because I get overheated. He can get overheated, so I'm working a lot more inside now, which is fine. There's a lot we can do inside as well, and in his enclosure where it's mostly shaded. So. Yeah, so this is just a picture of him being good while we're walking. So I like to share that. But that's it. That's training Buddy. That's the process. That's everything that we're going through. It's a lot of fun. It's very different for me, and I'm really excited to be working with him. He's a really cool bird. Yeah. So thank you all for coming, and I'm willing to take any questions that you might have about Buddy or the center or anything.
What do your parents think of you working with a giant eagle?
My parents, I think that my dad thinks it's a little weird that someone let me work with an eagle. He also thinks it's really cool. He likes the owls. So every once in a while, we'll share pictures with his friends, like, oh my God, she's doing this. But I think in the back of his mind, he's like, why? You're tiny. But yeah, I think they think it's really, why would they not? It's a really cool job.
I think
so.
Ryder, can you have him step up? So
Yes,
that
I can,
people
yeah.
Get your cameras ready because he does his wings out. So you might kind of get ready.
This is him stepping up. Yep. Are we ready?
Hold on one second.
Okay.
We got somebody trying to get his going, okay.
Are you ready now?
Yeah.
Step up. Step up. Step up. I know that my voice is gone. Step up. All the way up. He really likes his perch. So I can do that again. I can make this up again.
He says, do I get something? That was hard work. Sorry for this program. Some of the first. Well worked for food.
Oh, I can't turn around.
How much
No,
does
I mean,
Betty
I
normally
could, but
pay?
I guess I could. Go ahead, step up. Now, recognize that this is a little weird for him because you're all potential, killers. And now his back is facing you. He seems to be fine, but just so everyone's aware that it might be a little bit weird for him, so if he
Do you have plastic sheet over here, please?
serve a mouse. He eats 200 grams. He can eat more than that. He can hold more than that. He can hold like, I don't know, like 400 grams. I mean, not in his crop necessarily. He'll push some of it. He's already started to push some of it down from his crop. But I fed him 200, like he has 200 grams today, and I think he has like one mouse left. And I don't have a number of mice because the mice vary from little pinkies to bigger ones like that big. So I don't have a number of mice that averages out to. I only feed him mice or rats. Sometimes I feed him fish, like he gets a fish on his birthday. Bobby got him his fish this year, one of our supporters. Where is she?
Over there.
Oh, there she is. Yeah, Bob got him a fish.
I saw that picture of the fish, it was beautiful.
Yeah, that was his birthday fish, and he has a second one that I haven't used yet. He likes fish too. It's a little harder to work with for training because it tends to be like more flaky and pretty bony, so it's more fun for him to like tear it apart. With training, I give him little bits. If I have a bigger mouse, I'll cut it up into. He really likes gooey pieces, like gooey crunchy. I know, but you're saying ooh to his mice, but he would say ooh to everything else that you eat. So you're even.
He doesn't have any trouble then with his food situation of tearing things apart like a fish.
So at the Wildlife Center, we have students that do enrichment for our birds. So like little games, and we do things like Kong bones or like those little balls that have holes in them, and you can stick treats into them. And sometimes the students don't think about it. Sometimes the students don't think about it, and they will stick something into a hole that he definitely can't get into, and they give it to him. Yeah, it's like pushing food down his crop. And he has trouble sometimes getting things out, like he can't pick things out of holes often. But other than that, he can tear things up. It's definitely a little bit difficult for him. Like when we gave him his birthday fish, I had to put slits in it because he was having a hard time break through it. Every once in a while, he has a difficult time with something, but we're pretty careful not to give him something that he can't handle.
Do you have to give him nutrients?
So all of our education animals, all of our education birds, like our hawks and owls and falcons and buddy, once a week they get a chick with Vita-Hawk on it, supplement. But he doesn't like chicks, really. We tried it to give him as a reward. He ate a couple, and then he quickly got very sick of them. So I don't do that for him, but I will sometimes put supplements on the food that I'm giving him, just to give it to him. They give him some extra food on Saturdays. So if I work with him on a Saturday, I'll give him his normal meal, and then he gets a little bit extra usually. Cool. Any more questions?
Do you ever give them live?
No, he doesn't get live food. He wouldn't be able to eat live food. He wouldn't be able to catch it.
Yeah, witness the baby, and it just,
Yeah.
flops off, and then you have
Yeah.
chances of an injury and stuff when he does
He could, but I'm pretty careful about making sure that he gets away from things most of the time.
It doesn't hurt the leg, there's nothing.
No, we
Slow
actually,
changes.
no. If he baits a lot, so it can cause, like if you imagine he's baiting, he's pulling, you can put pressure on his hip. No, I'm not giving you food, I'm just touching my hip.
That is a treat sign.
So he can cause pressure on his hip. But we do x-rays periodically to make sure that, like we did x-rays not too long ago to make sure that there wasn't any inflammation or anything, and he's fine. So that was not too long ago, it was maybe like a month and a half ago. We would notice if there was some heat, like I can check him for heat here. Yeah, I mean every once in a while he bites me, don't get me wrong. It's not like he enjoys it. It's not like I'm petting him and it's fun. It's like, oh, lady, get this over with and give me a mouse. Which is fine, I'm more than willing to do that. If he lets me do something like that, that's so cool.
Me?
Yeah.
No. I didn't know.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
If you have any other non-releasable eagles, first part, second part is, if you wind up with non-releasable females, would you breed them?
No and no.
Been asked.
Yeah, and there's not really a need for us to do that, to breed him. And in the wild, they're mostly solitary anyway, unless they're mating, and we're not gonna mate him, so he's gonna be on his own. We don't have any other non-releasable eagles.
Other than today, is he still normally fasted on Sundays?
Yes. Yeah, he was fasted yesterday. I'm able to switch his day, because I feed him every day.
Why do you fast?
Because we fast all of our large raptors, so the only ones that don't get fasted are like the little screech owls and the kestrels, because they're so small, they burn stuff so quickly. But our large raptors, we feed them a good amount. We want to make sure they don't get overweight. If you imagine, most of them are flying around a ton. They either have injuries or they're in smaller enclosures, so we don't want them to gain weight and become unhealthy. So we fast them just like they normally would in the wild. They wouldn't be eating as much as frequently.
When you do the adrenaline, is he anesthetized?
He used to be, he's no longer sitting.
Tell the group about the feathers.
Oh, yes. Did he lose one? Because I know he was about to. I know. So this is this is the time of year where he's molting. So Buddy he had his 5th hatch day on April 27th, and by 5 they're usually considered adults in the wild. So he will molt. He's starting to molt now, and he's shedding out his feathers. So when his feathers grow in, they'll probably be whiter than they are now. His feathers on his head and his tail. And this is the time where his eyes are starting to lighten up. So if you'll notice, he has sort of like chocolatey brown eyes. And as he gets older, his eyes will probably lighten up a little bit more. And it's not the same for every eagle. Some of them have more brown in them. Some of them have darker eyes, and that's fine. But this is the time of year that he's molting. So I informed the first group earlier that when he spreads his wings, sometimes a feather will fly out because he's molting, and feathers are coming loose. And if you find it, he's not giving you the feather. It's not a gift. He needs to come to me because it's illegal to possess an eagle feather. And I was walking the other day with one of the Wildlife Center's employees, Elizabeth, her son, Austin. He's 5 years old. And we were walking, and I was with Buddy. We were walking around the building, and Buddy spread his wings, and a feather flew out. And Austin immediately picked it up and he said, I can't have this. And I just thought it was funny because he's 5 years old and it tells you that he's a wildlife center child. He's 5 and knows the laws around. So it's just really funny. But yeah, so if he hasn't done this, but I was concerned that if he spread his wings and flew a feather out, that somebody would try and keep it because it's really cool, but you can't. And we do use them
Why
for
is that?
There are laws against it. There's the Migratory Bird Act that prevents you from possessing any part of a bird. Like their feathers or their nests.
Where that person got that.
Just eagles?
No, most birds. Yeah, most migratory birds.
Yeah.
There's an international treaty. It's from many, many years ago, like the Victorian era. Because people were like killing birds and wearing them as hats and stuff, like insane stuff. Like no one would do that now, but there are people that still kill birds.
There's still
No one in my circle of friends would do that. For most of our eagle feathers, we can keep some of them for education purposes, but for most of them we send them to a repository and they're dispersed to Native American groups that are able to use them. Most of our other birds, we keep some of them to have in hand in case we need to use them for another patient, like with grafting them onto another patient. Other times, we just burn them. We send them to the incinerator. There's one more question.
This may be a silly question, I guess. You know, it's me being a human being, but with Buddy being from here, is there any way that he would even have an instinct that I'm home or in the area where I was just, no feelings of that?
Sorry. No. Yeah, that's definitely, that's anthropomorphizing. It's nice to think like, oh, maybe he would have some homing sense or he would, but I don't.
So it wouldn't make a difference if you walked to the botanical garden.
No. He'd be like,
And you see the old,
that's
the
true.
oldest.
I wonder if he recognizes his daddy. It's hopeful thinking.
If I had to guess, I would say no. Yeah. I mean, I've heard of studies where, not eagles in particular, but they were talking about raptors in general, where they would have like brothers and sisters, and there's no sense of like them being related, so sometimes they'll mate with each other, which is a problem. So I don't think there's any recognition there.
So it is a problem for siblings to mate.
It could, at least in captivity. I don't know in the wild, but this was a captive. This was this was like siblings. And I'm totally saying this without any, like I can't tell you where I read it. It's just something that's in my head right now. I just sort of regret saying because I can't tell you where it was from, so you can't read more about it.
Google it.
We want to thank everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed the program. Buddy was very good about letting people have pictures with him after the first group, and we will do that again. You have to stay on this side of the table. We'll slide the table a little closer, but you have to stay over here. So what we did in the first group is everybody kind of funnel here, and we just brought you up one by one. And if you've got somebody else taking a picture, they can kind of get into this area. So if anybody wants to do that, that's fine. We still have refreshments out. Don't forget to shop a little bit if you want. Remember, we're donating to the Wildlife Center, so thank you so much.
Did you bring any dead mice with you?
No, gee whiz. I was looking at this. Come on.
Oh, excuse me.
I'd like to they're over there.
Everybody please also keep your hands up this side of the table.
Ashley, you might want to see the
Everybody
But then they say they have to have permit. But their dogs out. Goes up there. So there's on there. So you gotta get permission for it. Don't let Hey Teresa, did you want your picture with, let me shoot it with yours? You want a picture with Buddy with your camera? So I know you don't have your significant other here to squeeze the trigger.